7 Days in St. June, Book 1 by Shinzakura, Chapter 20, starting over. And Chapter 2, October 20th, starting over. Instead of heading home, Celestia drove towards the secluded townhouse in the middle of the Eastern District. Parking next to a dark blue Volkswagen Beetle GSR, the principal shook her head in amusement at the sheer number of empty bags of McDonald's, Chipotle, and other fast food doggy bags. The sign of someone who lived pretty much on the go. Of course, this was normal. Celestia and her younger sister had always been a study in contrast, both even more so when compared to their older sister, Harmonia. When he got to the front door, she gently knocked on the door, 203 Calle de la Noche. Probably the main reason the resident within chose the place, Celestia guessed. The Hellhouse soldiers tended to be a bit flighty when it came to important distances like that. A muffled shout of "Just a minute!" echoed to the door. At that point, Celestia knew she was likely to be in hell of a way unless she acted. Not really in the mood to wait for what she felt like a millennia. Celestia reached into her pocket and pulled out her keys and used the spare her sister had given her. Walking in, she entered a place where time stood still, forever held in place by the whim of its timeless mistress. Which was a nice way of saying that the homeowners association that Luna belonged to ever saw the inside of her home. The term urban warfare would likely have to be revised. Lulu, we need to talk. Okay, a voice called from the kitchen. Want a beer? Can't. I still have to go home. Almost instantly, as Celestia recalled what she was about to tell Luna, she reconsidered. On second thought, what do you have? Smithwick's and a few bottles of Nostro Azzurro since he left last time. Pass me a Nostro. I'm going to order a pizza too, the elder sister said, pulling out her phone. Usual? Sure. Luna came out of the kitchen while Celestia called the local pizza joint. She wore what she typically tended to when she was at home. Well-worn Daisy Dukes, a deep blue t-shirt emblazoned with Pac-Man and the words Eat Me, and an expensive wireless Sennheiser gaming headset around her neck. As soon as the elder sister was done, Luna passed her the beer, asking, So, I'm guessing you're either here to tell me to clean my place again, or Ammonia's threatening about Kate's wedding. Neither, actually. It's about work. Luna sighed of relief. Oh, thank God. Every time Sis mentions Kate's wedding, Mama insists on bringing it up. So, where are you and Tia going to settle down? So, which one of the our students is in Tia right now? Actually, it's about Sunset Jimmer. You won't believe who took her under her wing. Hit me. Luna said, grinning. I've been fucking up the hell out of small talking assets all day at Titanfall, and I can use the excitement. What the fuck is Velvet thinking? The blonde-haired woman asked as she flopped on the couch. You know how Vel is, Celestia said. Besides, we can't exactly tell her, can we? I mean, she's known us forever, but if we were in her shoes, I'd find it a little hard to believe. No fucking kidding. Oh, hey there! Your closest friends have been hiding a secret from you. That the girl you just took into your home is only behaving herself because her ass got kicked by an alien princess who just happened to look like the spitting image of your daughter. Luna drank the rest of her beer and went back to the kitchen for another. Think that was on purpose? I don't know what to think, Celestia said, finishing up her own beer as the pizza guy knocked on the front door. And I hate to be in Sunset's shoes when she finally gets to meet Twilight. She might just end up to find things are a bit different than expected. It was on the third knock on the door the following morning that stirred Sunset awake. Her head screaming, she sat up, bedhead on her hair, and a fabulous Southsider Swords tank top slipping off her shoulder. She was barely able to open her eyes and felt completely exhausted. Even though the bed she was currently on was utter heaven compared to the dingy bunk she had been sleeping on the past few years, the nightmare of her previous night had turned any real chance of sleep for the first night she had likely been completely safe since her exile began. There was another knock on the door, and before she could really gather her wits about her, Sunset mumbled something that found vaguely in the ballpark of "Come in." As her visit came to, she saw a figure before her. She blinked, then rubbed her eyes, making sure she wasn't hallucinating. It was standing before her, wearing a black and gray hoodie with a Japanese on the front and a poodle skirt. Poodle skirt? Was a person she never thought she'd seen in her lifetime. Twilight Sparkle. There she stood, the same sort of smile on her face and the same twinkling purple eyes. Good morning, she said softly. Are you okay? A sudden flood of emotions overcame Sunset, and she was too overwhelmed to speak as she sat up to look at her fellow pony. A dozen sensations roiled through her. Joy at seeing her first real friend once more. Sadness at being reminded how that friendship had come about. And confusion as to why the Alicorn Princess had returned to Earth. Twilight? She asked, barely able to get a hold of herself. What are you doing here? I. Twilight mumbled, looking down at the floor and asked if more akin to Fireside than anything else. Finally, with her head down, she said, your stare. Your shirt. Sunset realized as he sat up. The other stuff of her tank top had slid off her shoulder, and the whole thing, already oversized, had slid down her body. It was hanging down her torso, with nothing now covering her. Sunset quickly recovered herself with the nearest pillow, turning bright white in the process. Rousing him out in laughter sounded from behind the door. Another girl came in the room, patting Twilight on the shoulder, wearing a Care Bear stare there, t-shirt and jeans. He had long black hair and eyes the same color as Twilight's. Twilight, once again, you prove you have such a way with words. The other girl said, grinning. Wow, Tavia, you realize that this is probably your second biggest role in your third biggest role in the fic outside of the Manhattan verse and the music verse? I know I am utterly shocked by this. But Twilight stammered. Didn't mind, yes, he's socially awkward, the newcomer said. Recovering somewhat, Twilight Blessed said, let's try this again. Hi, I'm Twilight Sparkle, and this Joker here is my cousin and best friend, Octavia Melody. Cousin and only friend, Octavia drawled. Anyway, you can just call me Tavi, and she goes by Tiny. Sunset. Setting. Sunset, the ex-pony replied as she wriggled under the sheets to adjust her tank top. And as she did, she now realized why things seemed so familiar. This was the human Twilight Sparkle, and the Alicorn Princess at Sunset knew was likely still in Equestria, since the dimensional gates were still closed. Likewise, that pony's pet dog, Spike, had a counterpart in the 8-year-old boy living in their house, though how that happened was beyond Sunset's ability to grasp. Well, according to the writers, they took that a girl's best friend, a dog is a girl's best friend. But we know the whole real reason why. It's allegory. Spike's a little dog. Twilight's in another world. For those of you who can't do the math, I'll get you, my pretty. You and your little dog, too. It's a Wizard of Oz reference. That's the whole reason why Spike is a dog. Nothing else. It was for that one simple gag. If it worked for you guys, it worked. If it didn't, well, personally, I would have preferred the 8-year-old boy thing. Would have been a lot more sense. Well, Mom figured that you were going to sleep in since you didn't sleep well on familial occasion and all, Twilight rambled, unaware of Sunset's thoughts. So she's making brunch now. I set up the bathroom down the hall for you if you want to take a shower or a bath. Afterwards, we can eat and talk. I'm guessing you want to know a little more about me and Tavi. I'd like to know a little more about you as well. Um, okay, Sunset answered. She struggled for words, lost for them once more. Maybe if this was Princess Twilight Sparkle, perhaps she could have handled the whole thing better. But the awkward girl standing in front of her was definitely not that pony. And so Sunset was just going to start off from scratch. Maybe that was a good thing. There were probably large differences between the two Twilights. This had been there between the two Celestias, and most definitely the two Spikes. It would be unfair to hang what Sunset knew of the Alicorn Princess on this girl standing before her. Besides, if we're going to be living together, I should get to know her, and not just assume she's like the Twilight I knew. Sunset thought as she climbed herself out of bed and ready for the day. Twilight, Did it ever occur to you that she probably could have just woken up on her own? Octavia asked her cousin as the pair went downstairs. Well, Mom said that she had to work today and sleeping in wasn't a good idea. So I pointed out, besides, I read a report the other day that said no matter how much you sleep your body is trying to make up for, the lack of sleep has already done neural and physiological damage. So, Octavia rolled her eyes. Twilight was in her infamous selection mode once again. I give up. I should know this from years of dealing with you by now. Yes, you should, the purple hair said, grinning. Is sunset up? Velvet asked, poking her head out of the kitchen. Yes, Mom, she is, Twilight answered. Oh, is she ever? Octavia agreed with a wide smile. What did you do? Velvet asked. Nothing else, Velvet. It just looks like we ran into the wrong time. And clearly not the morning person. Well, it's almost noon, so I suppose that makes sense. Thundering footsteps rolled down the stairs as a kid almost knocked over both teens on his way to the kitchen. Hey, is food ready? I gotta eat and then head over to Pitt's house for an epic gaming session. Is that all you ever think about, Spike? Octavia said as she reached down to mess with the spiky green hair. Sure enough, the young kid was dressed as normal. Purple t-shirt with a video game character on it, jeans, and a well-beaten pair of sneakers. Well, no. Sometimes I think about comics and other important things. But then a smile fell from his face as he added, Oh, by the way, couldn't find where you put your tablet. Wanted to copy over a game file that was playing on it and... Her eyes narrowed. You want to buy things again, didn't you? Using my tablet without asking? Well, yeah, but I swear, Spike, you're such a troublemaker at times. She turned to her aunt, growling, Ugh. What Velvet? Can I put him into next week? No, he has to do his homework first, Velvet replied, though I'm sure that Spike would like to do the dishes before he does his homework, as a punishment for going through your stuff. Isn't that right, son? But Spike was already tuning him out. Not really. So I bent down and looked at her brother, eye to eye. Spike, word of advice. Say yes before Mom only makes it worse for you. But I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to play. I didn't say I didn't warn you, Squirt. She told him, standing back up. Spike, that's very generous of you to offer to set the table as well, Velvet asked. But I promised Pip that he and I was... He started. Oh, I think you'll be assisting me with cleaning the house today as well. The help will be very much appreciated, Spike. The look in her eyes and tone of her voice strongly indicated that further attempts to push his luck would be met with peril. And I tried so hard to protect my little brother, Twilight said theatrically. Octavia's response was an exaggerated golf clap. It was a entirely balanced response. And if you two are done, Tavy, you might want to check your stuff to see that he didn't do anything else by accident. Twilight, could you get your father? Sure thing, Mom, Twilight replied, as he headed to the room the family used as a home office. As for Octavia, she went up back the stairs, fearing the worst. She remembered the last time her little cousin ransacked her bag. It didn't end well either. An hour later, Sunset stepped into Chikuku Corner. Breakfast had been awkward. At first, she felt defensive, put in the spotlight. She wasn't really sure how to react. It felt as though she had been placed on display like a museum piece, placed next to the table. But unfortunately, something had occurred while she was taking a shower. Most of that time was spent with Spike sulking. She got the feeling she was going to be sitting down on a regular basis. And Twilight and Octavia talking about their overnight trip to Riverdale, down in the southern part of the state. Riverdale? I swear, if Sabrina comes out of nowhere to help Sunset, I'm out of this fic. And so Sunset sat, hoping she could blend in with wallpaper and continue to remain unnoticed. Thankfully, that hadn't been hard. It was almost as though she hadn't been here. At least here in the cafe, she was on familiar territory, and as bizarre as Pinky's antics could be at sometimes, it was something that Sunset was well familiar with and could handle, in an odd way that made it comforting in a Kafka-esque sort of way. In any case, it had been the plan. Until she got caught by Pinky the moment the door closed. Pinky's face was a mixture of joy, relief, and concern as he turned. I was worrying about you. Pinky, really, I can't imagine why. As she took stock of what was going on, she noticed the other 14 standing there, all with the same looks on their faces. She turned her eyes towards the camera to see her bosses, Mr. and Mrs. Cake, Pinky's aunt and uncle, also looking at her with the same lame concern. Okay, What did I do this time? She muttered. Well, Sir Cube, that was the plan, Elsa began. Sunset, what can you tell us? A soft voice came from Blair's side, and as Sunset's mind processed the words, her blood suddenly ran cold. They knew. Somehow they knew. Celestia, you bet! Sunset chopped out the unspoken insult. The principal might be any number of things, but dishonest wasn't none of them. If Celestia says he wouldn't do it, she didn't do it. Okay, Simmer, think of something. I, she began, trying to come up with something, anything that would help her get out of this. Thankfully, the adults intervened. Girls, Garrett said gently as he gestured towards the door leading to the residential part of the building. Maybe you should take it upstairs. It was a slow enough day that Cup and I can handle things down here. And Sunset, no matter what, you can always come to us if you need advice. Most certainly, dear, Cup added, giving the confused teen a comforting grin. The curly-haired girl started pulling Sunset towards the residential stairwell. Whoop! Time to power up for a We get the idea, Pinky, Raven said, shaking her head. Long time. Pinky then raced towards the kitchen, returning with a sheet of chocolate chip cookies. We'll be putting these cookies, Uncle Carrot, on the cup, she said, pausing just long enough to give them kisses on the cheek before heading to the door. Nancy let go of the cookie sheet for a second as he pointed upstairs while calling out, King! Before grabbing the tray again, but somehow managed to float in the air just long enough for her to pull that off. No idea how she does that, Rainbow grumbled. Yeah, it's Pinky being Pinky. You know that, Randy said with a sympathetic smile. But for now, we need to focus more on Sunset's needs, not Pinky's, Pinkiness. Yeah, you got a point, Yevly admitted as the teens went upstairs, while Sunset wondered if there were somehow any dragons here on Earth she wasn't aware of. Maybe she could rearrange to be eaten by one. That might be an easier way to deal with all this, she mused. A minute later, the six were seated at the table in the Cake's dining room. As Pinky wandered off to the kitchen to get glasses of milk for emergency dunking purposes, Sunset wasted no time in counterattacking. Okay, who the hell told you guys? She asked, looking at all of them. Applejack sighed and raised her hand. I don't know if you're aware, but my mom and Vice Principal Luna are friends. For let Mile tell Money, Principal Celeste told Miss Luna that last night. The first thing Miss Luna did was call Mom. Then she came by the store this morning and told her, Pa and Granny, and Mac just happened to be there. He told Money, and then my parents pulled me aside to explain. So once I knew, I had to tell the girls. We're all friends, and friends back each other up. The girls nodded with one of sage wisdom. Sunset, darling, what can you tell us? Rarity asked, sounding hurt. By your friends, unless we thought you were. You guys are. Well, I hope you are, Sunset said, somewhat absently. Well, just something she was comfortable admitting to them. For once, she felt like Fluttershy, complete with the need to hide under the table. But their friends tell their friends everything, both good and bad, Rarity added. This is most certainly bad. I can go far as to say that it's the worst. I'll think she gets the others rares, Epsack interjected. No, I think Randy's right, Rainbow said, slushing her chair while reaching for another cookie. As she fixed her rose-colored eyes at Sunset, snarling. Making us worry like that, seriously uncool, Sunset. Not freaking cool at all. As for the other two, Fluttershy, since it was always, said nothing, but looked fit to cry. Piggy, however, still sat there, giving Sunset a wavering grin, though the girl's blue eyes seemed to be like bottomless wells of sympathy. And, wait, is Piggy's hair straightening? Sunset wondered. Sunset dug a cookie and ate and pondered her words. These are my friends, she thought to herself. I owe them this much. Look, what do you guys want me to say? She asked. We weren't friends until up just a little while ago. Hell, none of you were even speaking to one another until Twilight Sparkle appeared on the scene. At the mention of the alien princess's name, Fluttershy seemed even more distraught. I miss her, the chiffon-haired girl said. The other girls agreed. She said she'd be back someday if she could, Fluttershy, Rarity reminded her. Well, I guarantee you won't be missing her long, says the interjected, because I live with her now. Well, her human counterpart, that is. At her pronouncement, the five paused in surprise. Immediately, Rainbow even dropped her cookie into her milk. On impact, spattering white liquid all over the jersey she was wearing. You Yes, really, Sunset insisted. When the five looked at her, still waiting for a punchline, Sunset said, "No, I'm serious about this, guys. I live with her family now." So, what's she like? Fluttershy asked. Don't know, really. Just met her this morning, Sunset admitted. But she seems to have even less friends than I do. Well, did at any rate. She apparently hangs around almost exclusively with her cousin, who's the same age as she is. And while they're pretty close, I get the feeling neither of them have a particularly large circle of friends. Pinky snapped her fingers suddenly. The sound of a microscopic sonic boom filling the air. I knew I saw her somewhere before. Now I remember. I saw her at the mall earlier in the year. She was wearing a school uniform for the South Korean Academy for Girls. AKA Crystal Prep. That posh private school on the other side of town, I interjected. That's quite impressive. They have very vigorous standards for their students, both academic and extracurricular. I would have loved to go there myself, but unfortunately my parents couldn't afford the tuition. I guess you're living up north side then. No, actually they live over in San Palermo, but thankfully Principal Celestia arranged for me to keep going to Carolina High instead of having to transfer. Since I explained, the girls gasped. Brady's eyes twitched in surprise. San Palermo, as in one of the wealthiest towns in the state, San Palermo. Pinky's next words said it all for them. Wow. The quintet had quieted down as they tried to process the unexpected information they just received. Earlier, they were worried that our newest member of their circle would be living in penury. Obviously, that turned out to not at all to be the case. Well, okay, so you're living large. Fine. Still doesn't explain why you didn't tell us shit, Sunset, Rainbow accused. What, don't trust us or anything? Rainbow, weren't you listening? What could I do? My life was already in shambles, and even though I have you guys now, it's not like I could have asked any of you for help on my living situation. But we would have tried, Sonny, Pinky insisted. I know, Pinky, but look, you've done more than enough for me. I know you had to cut off some of your hours here at the cafe to convince your aunt and uncle to give me the job. They already got you and their own kids to take care of. They couldn't take in another. Since he looked at Applejack, your family has you, your parents, your brother, your sister, and your grandmother living in your house. I know your family would have offered, but you got enough mouths to feed. Well, if we still had the farm, it'd be easy. But since we stole it and opened it up our store, yeah, this place is my town home, the former farm girl answered. Ready was next. As for you, I know your family would have happily done so as well. But I also recall you saying the other day both of your parents are freelance journalists, and business has been kind of tight lately. Verity nodded. True, Mother hasn't received any article assignments from any of our contacts as of late, but at least my father's still busy with his weekly column at ESPN. Very to Rainbow next, as it said, then there's the issue with your family. You mentioned your parents are wanting to try another kid, and awkward. Yeah, no kidding, Rainbow grunted. Half the time, Scoots and I are staying at my cousin Spitfire's of late, so my parents can do the horizontal bump and Rainbow! First I scolded Pussy furiously. Well, they are! Since it ignored Rainbow's outburst, it turned to Fluttershy. While I know you were probably the best option, your mother's a single mother raising you and your little brother. She's got enough problems, and I probably would have compounded on them. But Sunset, you have friends. What kind of friends would we be if we didn't try to offer? Verity asked. And what kind of friend would I be if I imposed? You already know my deepest secrets. That's hard enough to live with. But having me under your roof would have been one step too far. You guys are my friends. I like keeping you that way, Sunset added, adding a quick smile in the hopes it would help. Still, we would have found some way to help, Verity insisted. You could have stayed with one of us for at least a couple of days, or maybe one of your parents could have called social services on me, because that would have been the right thing to do. But that's what I don't need right now. Too many questions would be asked, and not even Principal Celestia would cover me at that point. When she saw the questioning looks on our faces, it made her smile inwardly, knowing how much he accepted her over the past 3 weeks. I think you guys forget. I'm not really human. And there's an actual Sunset Simmer somewhere else in this world, whose identity I'm using. Well, Princess Twilight turned you to pony human hybrids, so you could be demon dad and princess to me! Yep, get on kind of look. That was kind of freaky. That was recommended. Glad no one remembers any of that, save for those that needed to. The room descended in an uncomfortable silence. As a natural human, thought about the temporary change and how odd it had been. The girl probably had to live with her first equivalent every day. As her sunset, she wondered how the girls, growing up in a world without magic, felt about their first experience with it. Relatively speaking, shape-changing spells weren't by any means comfortable. Finally, Sunset leaned back in the chair and spoke, breaking the silence. Look, you guys really want to help me? Just be there for me like you have been the past few weeks. And at the risk of sounding weird, I think that Twilight and her cousin could probably use you guys too. Mrs. Twilight says he had a group of extremely close friends back in Equestria. They meant the world to her. Now you have us, Sugarcube, Applejack said, rising from her seat to embrace Sunset. A second later, the other four girls did the same, and Sunset felt very warm and comfortable in the embrace of her friends. I was wrong to wonder they'd ever be my friends someday, she thought to herself, not when it's already obvious. Thanks, girls, she said to them, relief crawling to her features. Yeah, what else? Rainbow said, trying to play it off as always. But next time, if you don't tell us you're in trouble, I swear to God I'm gonna kick your ass. Got that? Rainbow, Firefly cried. How's that gonna help anything? Don't worry about it, girls. I'm sure after this, Sunny's life is gonna be all sunshine and sweetness. Pinkie sighed. Now, come on, we gotta finish all the kittens. The remainder of this day was spent in idle chatter. Neither of the case came upstairs during the cafe's hours. Spending had been already a slow day. It's a fourth for Sunset. Yes, the Unicorn promised to introduce her to her new family. As soon as it was all settled down, they were looking forward to it. Likewise, they were definitely looking forward to meeting both Octavia, and especially Twilight, despite Sunset's worries that the teen was more like Butterside than the alien princess they knew. Finally, as closing time came, Mr. King came upstairs to let Sunset know her ride was there. As the girls went downstairs, they noted Knight was waiting outside, drinking a cup of coffee and breezily chatting with Mrs. Cake. Once Sunset gathered her stuff, the two departed. As the car drove up, Pinkie was the first to ask, So, Anika, is he okay? Though the others hadn't asked, the concern of her friends was obvious. I think she is, she told the girls. Sunset's to be in good hands. I have a good feeling about him. Earlier, buoyed by her friend's support, Sunset was sure she was going to be okay. However, that confidence quickly went away by the time she came and they arrived at the restaurant. Now all Sunset wanted to do was crawl under the table, read through the carpeting. At least it's the ground a few feet below. It would help prevent everyone from the table staring at her. She had no idea what to do. You look like as though you've never been to a real Italian restaurant before. The girl leaning against Shiny's shoulder commented. That girl was Mia More Cadenza, though she preferred to be called Cadence instead. Celestia's niece turned out to be much more different than expected. She was funny, charming, and sweet, though Cadence claimed that she does on some of her off hours. That her day job as an assistant district attorney for the county, she was a lot more ruthless. I'm sorry with the idea that Cadence is a district attorney. For some reason, my mind immediately directed to Persona 5. Meanwhile, Sunset continued to look at the menu, floored. The truth of Cadence's statement was that, in fact, Sunset hadn't. While she studied about the peculiarly similar Italy back in her homeworld, but for its counterpart here, she only knew via fast food pizza joints and numerous Chef Boyardee cans she had consumed over the years. Kane smiled again. Well, fortunately for you, Buca di Beppo isn't a real Italian place either, though it's likely the closest thing you're going to find here in Equestrian County. And while there is a little nice Toyota by the state line up in Brambleton, otherwise you gotta go somewhere like New York or New Jersey to get something a little more authentic. So says the person who's never been to Italy and can barely speak Italian, Twilight teased, while Octavia giggled from her hated seat. Kane smoked tired for a second. Yeah, laugh it up, Twilight. Anyway, my grandparents, Mom, and my aunts moved here from Italy when Aunt Luna was 5. She told Sunset. You think they just leave things as is, but when I was born, my grandparents insisted to Mom and Dad I get an Italian name so I wouldn't forget my family heritage. But as far as I could tell, said heritage consists of a lot of carbs and marinara sauce. Well, at least there's the wedding next year, if you two are still thinking of getting married there. Velvet wondered as she took a sip from her glass of wine. Yeah, destination weddings are all arranged, and my parents think it's a great idea, Kate told her. Besides, Grandpa and Grandma are getting up there in years, and they haven't been back to Cavalcanti in decades. Besides, what's not to love about Italy? Well, the girls there are hot, Sonny said whimsically. He gave Buzz a shoulder for it. What'd I say? I know you said that just to be facetious, but it's going to cost you, she said in a teasing seesaw voice. Like what? Oh, you'll find out tonight, sweetie, she said enigmatically, or drinking from her own glass of wine. Nightlight and Velvet merely looked at each other in a way that indicated that as a married couple, they generally knew their future daughter-in-law meant, though their son was lost. Twilight continued to look at the pictures, and Octavia had her head cocked in the way she was indicating listening to music. She played the contrabass and was planning to be a classical musician for a living. Spike ignored everything, heavily focused on his 3DS. But as for herself, Sunset never felt so alone. In fact, she would have said that she felt like a camera recording a family, just a piece of furniture. Aaron Loper, who was forever on the outside, looking in. The seven of them were like the ideal family. Even Octavia, who was Twilight's cousin on her father's side, and Kate wasn't even married to the family yet, belonged more than she did. Thankfully, the waiter came by to take orders, pointing out that the food here was communal, similar to Chinese food. That made Sunset unwind ever so slightly. This is everyone placed an order. Good thing Twilight ordered to San PM Paremo, because that sounded interesting. Sunset drank the rest of her raspberry cream Italian soda and blurred something about having to head off to the restroom. She really didn't need to go. She just had to get away. As she departed, Kate said to Velvet, just so you know, both Shiny and my aunts told me everything already. I have to admit, I'm kind of surprised you're turning this. Isn't 4 kids enough? Well, 3.5. No offense, Hobby. Then take it, Octavia replied. Velvet drained her glass, then looked at her future daughter-in-law. Actually, if you want to know the truth, Sunset reminds me of a little myself when I was her age. Both me and your Aunt Tia. Just everyone at the table looked at Velvet and said, Really? Velvet nodded. We were the queen bees at our school, and part of me wonders if Lulu's attitude phase was simply because she didn't match the popularity Tia had. Either way, I know I didn't treat any of the folks I knew well, and at one point Tia and I even came to blows over a boyfriend she had at the time. But thankfully, I got older and realized you're only on top for a little while. Sooner or later, you're going to fall, and when you do, hopefully, you'll have someone there to catch you. I was lucky. Tia and I have had each other, and we've remained friends throughout the years. She looked at both Twilight and Octavia. In the years to come, you two will realize how lucky you are. You practically are joined at the hip. But the older woman looked towards the exit of the bathroom as he continued. But I don't know if Sunset has that kind of support. I guess Tia has is that Sunset's been living alone for the past 4 years. She's been on her own since she was 12. What's absolutely unthinkable. She's had no one. And while that's great for being independent, it also gives you a huge blind side when it comes to trusting others. You end up not believing in anyone except yourself. And sooner or later, that means you're alone. Twilight looked at her mother intently, then at her cousin, then immediately left the table, headed towards the restrooms post haste. After briefly bumping the final scratch of all people on the way to the restroom, who the fuck wears shades indoors? Sunset made it to her destination, a place just as gaudy as the rest of the restaurant. Leaning against the sink counter, she started to breathe heavily again, trying to regain whatever sense of normalcy she had earlier today. But it was long gone, and nothing seemed normal any longer. Something was tearing at her heart, and she knew exactly what it was. After all, she saw it every day. The scorn, the looks of disappointment, the sorrow, the hatred, all of it perpetually directed at her, an unceasing maelstrom that she had to live with these past 4 years. And only now she had begun to buffet against the rocks and souls of despair. And yet, just mere yards away was a family that she now was totally normal with, yet forever apart from them. The in her would forever mark her so long as she remained. And every damning look she received from Principal Celestia continued to remind her of the Algorn princess, the closest thing Sunset had ever had to her family prior. The son Alcorn had reached out to the young mare, and in return, all Sunset had done was spurn the love given out of greed and obsession. Friends, foster family, these were only reminders of what she could never really have. your stand-ins for what she had pushed away on her native world. As she turned to look in the mirror, she saw herself, her true self in its reflection. The muzzle, the fur, the hooves, the horn, all remembered that she was an alien on this world, solitary in exile. At best, in her real form, she would be seen as a pet. After all, by a rough guess, she would stand as tall as the average German Shepherd, about 20-30 inches or so at the withers. But it was her magic that would make her a threat. A sort of living nuclear weapon, either to be controlled or destroyed. Fortunately for her, however, only a select people really knew what she was. But in many ways that made it much worse. She would forever be beholden to the goodwill of the people she couldn't entirely trust, or the case of her friends, young women who could turn an innocent slip of the tongue into a lifelong stay at a highly classified government lab somewhere in an undisclosed location. Or worse, on a dissecting table in said location. Sights and sounds ran through her like infinitely sharp knives. Memories of ponies who wanted to be her friends, only to be spurred because they weren't important enough. Associates who wanted to get to know her, but were ignored because their studies were far too important. Celeste even had a niece, so she couldn't remember her name. But the princess once mentioned she could be like a sister to her, so she lived with her parents in a mansion just north of the palace. So many chances at a normal life. Too many chances at a normal life, burned to the ground because Sunset Simmer dared to think she knew better. And what did that get her in the end? Exile. And a sword does it in the place she had been exiled to. Before she realized what was going on, she slept on the floor, crying. She was forever barred from her home, at least for the next 3 years, though that in itself was merely an academic point. She knew that if she tried to return, Princess Celestia would arrest her. Even if Princess Twilight tried to speak in her defense, it was the younger Alicorn. Once the unicorn herself that met all Celestia's dreams and had earned her a place as the elder Alicorn's daughter. All Sunset was, and would ever be, was a failure and a washout. An exile, never to return home. Forgotten, abandoned. She didn't know how long she had been there, until she felt the soft impression of arms encircling her. More impressive was someone pulling her close. Looking out through tear-stained eyes, she saw Twilight sitting there, next to her, holding her tightly. Next to her, with no less a concerned look, was Octavia. I know this isn't easy for you, Twilight said, holding her close as possible. It's not easy for me either. All my life it's just been Shiny, Katie, Spike, Tavi, my parents, and her parents. I never needed anyone else. They're my family, and I love them more than anything. She took a pause to catch her breath, and Sunset felt something hot again, wet against her cheek. Was Twilight crying? For her? But I know they're just strangers to you. You probably feel alone right now. Afraid. I know how that feels sometimes. If it wasn't for Tavi, I'd probably just go to the school, the library, and that's not it. I'm not very good with people, as you could probably guess. Octavia nodded. What Twilight's trying to say somewhere between those sobs, and her use of key to the point, is that she and I are more than just cousins, more than just friends. We're sisters of a sort. My parents are both in the Canton Symphonic, and they're almost always on the road. So Uncle Knight and Aunt Velvet have raised me as much as my parents, maybe more so. Shiny and Spike are the closest things I have to brothers, since I'm an only child. Katie's been our babysitter since we were 7, so it's natural that we're as thick as thieves, but I think all of us forgot about you in the process. But now you have someone new to think about, and it's a learning process, Twilight continued. I had to get used to having someone else there that I've never been able to deal with before. And I'd probably come off as standoffish since the first thing this morning. I'm sorry if I did that. Same here. Twilight's sarcastic, but I'm outright sarky. And I know it takes some getting used to. I'm sorry as well if I hurt your feelings. Sunset looked at them both, not believing this. They are acting much the same way she expected her friends to do. And she just met these two. And while she had no basis for comparison for Octavia to anyone she'd known back in Equestria, this Twilight was definitely not like the confident, courageous, and assertive princess he knew. In some ways that was comforting, as with the princess, Sunset would always be reminded of the pony she could have been, while with Twilight, she could be as simple as the person Sunset wanted to become. Sunset gave the other two girls a simple nod. No, it was an accident. I was groggy from the night before and not in the best of shape. she told him. Furthermore, I wore that tank top without reading the instructions. It's an overgarment, meant to be worn over a t-shirt, so that was my fault. And I both owe you an apology for that unexpected show. At that, Octavia started giggling, though it was clear not to be meant in Melissa's way. What's so funny? I, Twilight said before blushing furiously. Sunset looked at her weirdly before Twilight confessed. Yesterday, Tavi and I went to one of her recitals in Riverdale, and there was this one guy from Riverdale High who kept looking at our chests. Really bothered me. And then after this morning, when you went to use the shower, I told Tavi that we should have brought you along, because you're bigger than both of us and could have kept him busy. Sunset blinked once, twice, and for some reason started laughing at the absurdity of it all. Twilight looked flustered and frowned before starting to laugh as well. When Octavia got started once more, the trio of girls couldn't stop, breaking a very tense moment for the three of them. Pierre headed to the restroom carefully, Velvet sighed of relief. After Sunset raced off, she feared the worst, but Twilight and Octavia, blessed them, went off after her. Twilight in particular had a look of determination on her face that Velvet had rarely seen on her millicose-natured daughter, as if the situation brought out something in Twilight that compelled her to rise to the occasion. Oh, that's good, Kate said from behind her. I was worried there for a moment, but the girls have got everything under control. Velvet closed the door carefully, then nodded. Let's get back to the table. I'm sure they'll join us soon enough. The three girls continued to chat in Sunset's room, well past a reasonable hour. Octavia called her parents and said she was staying over, and as always, it was never an issue. Since the return from the dinner, the trio had a more detailed conversation. Far more relaxed and certainly more akin to what would be normal for their age. Since I'm a botanist, and you won't believe how many people think I'm a guitar when I say that, I mostly tend towards classical music, though I also tend to read Aunt Velvet's jazz CD collection now and then, Octavia said. On rare occasions, I'll listen to something that Twilight insists on, though I usually tend to regret it. Well, that's because your taste in music runs towards the age of boring, Twilight laughed. As for me, I mainly listen to pop. Sapphire Shores, Happy Big Cat, Bombay Bicycle Club, that kind of stuff. Octavia patted my gagging while Twilight explained, earning a scowl from her cousin, causing Sunset to chuckle. So, I will admit that once in a while, she finds something in Mom's collection that's worth listening to. She amended. What about you? Well, other than the occasional song by Silky Sounds or Tequila Sunrise, I mostly like hard rock. Hoofstomper, Mute Math, Of Mice and Men, all the good stuff. A sudden thought crossed her face as she worried. Oh, that reminds me. I have to get the new Discord album from my friend Rainbow when I get the chance. I've been waiting all month for his new album to come out, and she told me to she got a copy of Todd the Mighty Rock yesterday. To Sunset's surprise, both Octavia and Twilight looked at each other as something clicked. But Octavia asked, Rainbow? Also Rainbow Dash? Uh-oh. You know her? Well, we know of her, so I explained. We have this girl on our school's JV soccer team, Fastfire. She's a complete bitch. Anyway, at the start of the game last month between your school and ours, Fastfire apparently said something to Rainbow that pissed her off completely. Because apparently a few minutes later, she kicked the ball hard enough to smash Fastfire's nose. Broke it too. Got the message across apparently. Well, that explains why Rainbow was suspended from school those 2 days. Sunset said to herself. Even still, though Rainbow wasn't her friend at the time, she was now, and Sunset felt compelled to defend her. Hey, Rainbow's cool. She probably did do it on purpose, knowing Rainbow. But there's probably a good reason for it. Rainbow's really big on loyalty, and nothing pushes her button faster than someone talking shit about her friends. Yeah, one of the cheerleaders at our school said she overheard Fastfire call some girl Fluttershy an autistic flower child cunt or something like that. You know her. Yeah, that would do it, Sunset thought. Frankly, that would probably be enough to make her go after Fastfire as well. Fluttershy's a friend of mine as well. Really nice girl. Actually, Twilight, you remind me a little of her. Hopefully that's a good thing, Twilight answered. Sunset nodded affirmative. It is. Fluttershy's a great girl. Actually, I hope I can introduce you to all my friends. I think you really like them all. They're not the most normal ones of girls, especially Pinky, But that's part of their charm, actually. Octavia nodded. That'd be nice. What do you think, Tiny? No offense, Sunset, but let me make things a little bit at a time. Still getting used to this agreement, she said. Not that I think your friends are bad or anything, but... No, I understand. If anything, that's the kind of answer Fluttershy would give as well, to be honest, Sunset admitted. Plus, there's no rush. Someone I know once told me that the magic of friendship is everywhere. Though she was talking to one Twilight Sparkle, inwardly she was thinking of another. The Alicorn Princess's words were coming in quite handy. Thanks, Twilight, she said to herself. However, the human Twilight gave Sunset a nonplussed look before saying, whoever told you that, Sunset, that's kinda cheesy. Octavia, however, grinned. You know, Twilight, that's not something exactly you'd say, come to think of it. The teen never finished her statement as he was immediately beat by a well-placed pillow to the head, thrown by Twilight. A second later, there was a knock on the door, followed by Velvet poking her head in. Girls, I know you three are having fun, but you really should call it a night, okay? With a trio of groans, he had, I've got to get up early, get us all fed, drop off both Spike and Sunset before heading to work. Charlie, your friend father will be taking you and Tabby to school tomorrow. That being said, cut some old folks to slack, okay? Fine, we get the message, Mom, Spike answered. Who's wrapping up anyway, Aunt Velvet? Octavia answered. And I need to get up early anyway. If I'm going to take a shower before those two hog all the water. Her answer earned scowls from the other two teens. She asked cautiously, What did I say? Sunset chose to ignore that, and instead addressed Velvet. Besides, I'm guessing Principal Celestia will want to see me before class starts, she hazarded. Most likely, Velvet agreed. Good night, girls. See you in the morning. With that, Velvet closed the door, leaving the trio in peace. An hour later, Velvet noticed the lights were still on. Girls, it's 2 in the morning, she mentally grumbled. You three had better. Opening the door, she prepared to scold the trio, but stopped. Though the lights were on, the three girls were asleep on the bed. Though Twilight and Octavia had separate beds in Twilight's room, the two had been so comfortable with one another, they tended to sleep together even as teens, so that was an odd. But in the center, seemed as though she always belonged, was Sunset. There was a hint of a smile on the girl's face, as though she subconsciously knew for the first time in a long while she didn't have to fear being alone. Velvet had no doubt whatsoever that tonight would probably be the best night of sleep the troubled youth would have in a long, long time. A lovely smile crept on the face of the 50-something woman. Quietly entering her room, she bent down and kissed her daughter on the forehead. Their niece, and after a slight second, did the same to Sunset. Taking care to be quiet, she slipped the comforter over the trio, gazing at them one last time before turning to the off switch. Good night, my sweet girls, she whispered warmly before closing the door.